This episode is brought to you by Caltif Investments and Consultants. If you're looking for investments for new construction, home, or renovation project, they definitely can provide that service. If you're looking to rent or lease a property, Caltif Investment is the way to go. If you're watching this from our Instagram page, definitely their handle will be within the body of the post. If you're watching this, the full episode on YouTube, definitely send me a message and I'll definitely connect you. It's called the network for a reason. What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 5 of the network. I'm introducing this guy onto the platform. He's going to introduce himself to you guys. I've never met this guy before, but there's been a lot of good talks about him. And I actually had a quick conversation with him just to try to get to know him, because a lot of the individuals that bring onto a platform, I just try to get an idea of what their story's like and so forth. And when we really got on the phone with each other and we started jiving and started vibing, he started breaking down his story. And listen, man, the stories and the introduction that other people was giving me actually fit who he is. And I was like, you know what? This dude's definitely gonna be worth, this dude's definitely gonna be worth a guest to bring onto the platform, because he has some great things going on. And let me not say much, because I actually want this guy to break it down, who he is, where he's from, and what he's about. Welcome to the network platform. Let's go.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
So, as some of you may know, some of you may not know, my name is Carlos Ariel Then. A lot of people know me as Mr. Then, the Millennial Business and Finance Coach. I've been doing this since 2017, I guess you could say. Before then, I used to work in the banking industry. I worked for Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. Did that for a while, was in the corporate world. Before then, T-Mobile. Best Buy was my first job. And long story short, I went ahead and got into the business and finance consulting after starting my first endeavor in college, which was like a entrepreneurial kind of kickstart for me.
Nice. Let me ask you, right? Because you have a unique brand name. And I'm curious, and I know people are also going to be curious as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Then, where did that come from? And if you don't mind, if you could actually break down the context around that, because I really thought that was a unique brand name. Now, I'm really intrigued to know how that came about.
Yeah, so believe it or not, that actually is my last name.
Get out of here.
So I swear to God, you can check all of my government IDs. They all say Carlos Ariel Then. So that is my last name.
So Ariel is your middle name.
Ariel is my middle name.
Ariel is but you're Dominican.
I am Dominican.
Very interesting. Break that down. I need to understand that context.
So I actually did some studies on it myself, because I was curious as to how I ended up with the last name Then as a Dominican myself. So the last name Then actually comes from a very small part of the Dominican Republic. It can only be found from people that live in mainly San Francisco de Macorís.
All right.
So there are other Dominicans with the last name Then. I'm not the only one.
Interesting.
But like it's a very small family, I guess you could say. And literally, if you have the last name Then, you're related to me one way or another. So
that's pretty unique. Right. Now, you were born in Dominican Republic, or you were born here?
No, so I was born in the Bronx, New York.
Interesting.
So born in the Bronx, in Mount Lebanon Hospital, and was raised in Providence, Rhode Island. I used to live on Mass Ave, and went to Roger Williams Middle School. Then after that, moved to Cranston, went to Cranston East, and pretty much lived here all of my life.
You started your entrepreneur spirit,
Yeah,
in college.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Now let's talk about that journey into how that led you to where you're at today.
To where I'm at today, yeah. So really, it started in my dorm room. I was doing my taxes, and my roommate walks in, and he's like, "Oh, you know how to do your taxes?" And I'm like, "Yeah, don't you?" So that was something that I had self-taught myself, and I figured like most people probably do that, but I guess not. So long story short, he's like, "Okay, I'll pay you $50 to do mine." And I'm like, "All right, log into your TurboTax account. I got you." So within 5 minutes, I went ahead and finished his tax return, and he paid me $50. So I was
Amazing.
like, okay, cool. This is something that I could potentially make a good amount of money on.
Mhm.
I've never made $50 in 5 minutes. Um, so I got like this crazy idea. I went on GoDaddy.com, and that was when I first started using my name
Mhm.
kind of as something that's marketable.
Yeah.
So I came up with Now Then Financial at the time.
Nice.
That was my first business, I guess you
Yeah.
can say. I opened up the LLC on my own. Like I just
You had that
I had that
entrepreneurial
drive.
spirit
I had
going.
that drive. Went on GoDaddy.com. They had like those templates. Threw up a website. Um, Google Voice. Found the numbers and set up a Google Voice number with my last name in the number that I use
Mhm.
to this day.
Wow.
So my phone number is 401-267 then.
That's dope. That's dope.
And I put that website on the computers in the library as the home page. You know how you can set the home
Yo,
page? I set that on every computer in the library,
get out of
and
here.
kids were blowing up my phone. Blowing up my phone. I didn't think it would do that well,
Mhm.
but it did, and that was the most money I've ever made, like in that time frame. Um, I made so much money that I started to unknowingly overspend on things.
It
Because
happens.
I didn't have a mentor, I didn't have
Yeah.
anybody to teach me kind of like about what to do with the money,
Yeah.
or like I spent 10 grand on an application that I haven't never used.
Get out of
Yeah,
here.
waste of money. But at the end of the day, it was cool. It was an experience. I went on a lavish vacation to Colombia. Like it was crazy. I was making too much money at that age. But it was something that I had to take a step back from eventually.
Mm.
Um, I did get in trouble for doing that thing with the computers in the library. My
I was gonna
dean,
ask you that.
yeah, so my dean called me into his office. He's like, "Hey, Carlos, like, I've been hearing about kind of what you're doing. The librarians have been blowing up my phone,
Sheesh.
talking about that they can't get this website off of their computers and this, that, and the third." So basically, he did give me a slap on the wrist. I just
Mhm.
had to go in. I gathered a bunch of my friends, and we just went in and removed it off all
Yeah.
the computers. But it was something that for me really, really blew up and transformed my ideas of like how to market and like entrepreneurship and making money. On a large scale.
It's man. So it's crazy, right?
Mm,
Because they said a lot of they don't even say you we actually witness it, right? A lot
mm,
of great entrepreneurs started off in unique places,
mm,
right? Some started off right in their dorm room in
mm,
college, like you. Some started off in their garage in their house,
yeah,
and it's your story's pretty unique, like most other successful great entrepreneurs out there, where like they just happen to stumble upon an idea,
mm,
and they took that idea and just
yeah,
spread, right?
went with it. Yeah,
And I feel like a lot of the kids nowadays are very because a lot of the kids nowadays they're not sure how to make money,
yeah,
but they also have this entrepreneurial spirit, and thanks to social media they could do that.
yeah.
But while they're in school, just being able to think outside the box and finding ways to earn income, you
Hmm.
know, um, I think that can actually, if kids were able to open up their mind and see there's different alternative,
Yeah,
right, to the possibility of making some form of income and applying those opportunities to themselves, they can actually, you never know, they could become really successful with it,
yeah.
with the ideas they generate.
I mean, one of the things that I found, and I ended up writing a book about this eventually. It's called Learn, Drop the L, and Earn.
All right.
Um, Literally, it's the goal of it is to take you from that worker's mindset to
Yeah.
that entrepreneur mindset.
Gotcha.
And what I found, you know, is that you know you only fail really if you quit
Mhm.
or you die. So it's one of those things where when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, I tried a lot of things.
Yeah.
That tax thing, it hit. I took a step back from it because I ended up getting the position at Bank of America
Mhm.
Merrill Lynch. It ended up being a unallowed external business.
Mm.
So, they kind of hit me up and were like, well, we want to offer you this position, but you can't do this on the side type of thing.
How would they know?
Well, they saw it all over like my LinkedIn and this, that, and the third. So
There was
It's
no way around it though.
not if you're doing like investments.
Gotcha.
So with investments, you have to show them through like I think it's called a U3 or U4, something like
Hmm.
that, everything that you're invested in. And if it's something that's not allowed or something that like, is an unallowed external business, you can't do it as a
Interesting.
financial advisor.
Gotcha.
Um, but it was something that I ended up kind of taking a step back, saying, all right, let me learn from this entity that is, you know, one of the largest entities in the world in
Hmm.
this industry. And I did. I learned, about how credit cards worked, um, how the banks make money
Hmm.
off of credit cards. I learned how investments work, how options tradings work,
Hmm.
stocks, bonds. All of these things ended up adding to my knowledge, which now as a business and finance consultant, people literally pay me for what I know.
Makes sense.
So it ended up working out in the long run.
That's an amazing story. Now you have your startup, which is your tax. I mean, your tax services from
Hmm.
college. You transition over to Merrill Lynch.
Yep.
Now you're here today, and you've already started establishing this entrepreneur drive push.
Yeah.
What are your sources of income now?
Yep. So now I'm full entrepreneur. I don't have a 9 to 5, I guess you can say, in the
Yeah.
traditional sense. Um, I do my consulting business. That's, I guess you could say, my main platform.
Mhm.
I own a security company, which is called Nightlife Security with a K.
All right.
So we do private security guard services for people that need them, whether it be VIP venues, things of that nature.
Mhm.
Um, I have a supermarket in the Dominican Republic, and um, with the consulting thing within there, there's like different branches of it
Mhm.
where like specifically I deal with like credit with some people, taxes with another,
Mhm.
business setting up. So like things like USPTO, setting up like for example like their trademark,
Yeah.
things like of that nature. And more recently, something that I started that isn't necessarily producing revenue now, but someday will, is something that's called Privilege, which that's actually a tequila that I'm launching pretty soon.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
So I remember you brought that up
yeah,
when we were talking on the phone, and I was like, people are gonna want to know about how the tequila business
yeah,
is created, or
yeah. Like how it's made.
how it's made and all that. So
Yeah,
that's something I definitely want to get into. Um, so it's called Privilege.
yep,
Let's tap into that. Why tequila? What made you decide to get into it? And why tequila specifically versus other alcohol beverages?
yep,
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Network Podcast. I'm only asking you guys for one huge favor. If you guys like what you're listening to, hearing, all that, please subscribe to the YouTube page. If you're on Instagram, like, follow, and share our Instagram page, thenetwork.co. That's THENETWRK.co. It's your boy Sadiq.
yep. So it was something that I, did some market research on, um, both personally and through the web. So I'd literally just walk into a bar sometimes and, ask the bartender, like, what's the shot that most people get or the
Mhm.
drink that most people get?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it was tequila. So just from personal experience, I went ahead and did some, hit a few spots up, and that was the most common answer. Some people would say vodka, others said tequila, some said cognac, but for the most part, tequila won,
Mm,
especially if it was shots. Most
gotcha.
people tend to not turn down a shot of tequila, uh, whereas they might turn down like a shot of like Hennessy or something like that
Hmm.
because they're probably not fond of it or.
Yeah.
You know. So that was the first thing. Then I realized that tequila has a lot of health benefits. Um, that it's less in calories, less in sugars, things of that nature.
Mm.
So that was good. I was on a kind of a journey to kind of you know
You're
lose
going
weight anyways and
you're
get
going down the
better.
rabbit hole.
Exactly. And then my business partner, or my friend, I should say, mentioned, oh, I'm doing keto. and I can
Right.
only drink tequila. And I was like, oh, well, that's more of a reason to,
To start it.
to do something like that, because that's something that you can drink and you can, help me out with and be able to give me ideas on. Um, and then I found out that if it's not made in Mexico, it
Mhm.
can't even be called tequila.
Tss.
So there's a lot of aspects that go with it
Mhm.
that, I guess you could say you have to do your research,
Mhm.
or as I always like to say, you need to learn before you can earn.
Have you been researching different distilleries in Mexico, and have you been reaching out?
Yeah, of course. So that's definitely one of the things that you have to do.
Mhm.
Just going ahead and looking up what distilleries exist. Believe it or not, a lot of these companies that make tequila for like Casamigos or whoever it might be make tequila for a lot of other places too.
Mm.
You just have to, while they might have some samples of like particular tastes, then you have the option of, either white labeling things, which is not the route I'm going through,
Mhm.
or actually creating your own brand, I guess you could say, out of the whole thing, where you would need to go through taste testings and, they give you tastes and then you figure out, okay, well, I want this to have a better aftertaste,
Mhm.
or I want to, switch this up at the end, or I want it to taste more like, this particular brand
Gotcha.
and that not.
Um, Now the tequila itself,
Yeah.
right? If you don't mind, can you share what that process looked like in terms of starting it? And I'm not sure if you know how that what the
Like
end.
actually making the tequila or?
Great question. I think in generally speaking, I think more so like the process of um you already spoke about the trademark
Yeah.
itself, right?
Yeah.
So I guess maybe we could talk about what the process of making the tequila
Yeah.
look
So I
like.
mean, there's licensing that you have to get, things of that
Gotcha.
nature, in order to even distribute and sell
Hmm.
alcohol in the United States. Every state is differently, so you'd have to look and see into what each state's laws are,
Yeah.
as well as licensing and things of that nature. Um, so that, that's something that is different for every state.
Mhm.
For us, for example, it can be a little bit more complex in Rhode Island. Aside from that, once you have the distillery actually will do a lot of the work for you.
Interesting.
So, as far as like making sure that things get through customs and things like that, they'll handle that. So if you get a good distillery, at least the one I'm working with, um, it's great. They walk you through the whole process basically.
Nice. Now, in terms of the marketing and branding, do they obviously they just make the beverage?
Hmm.
You handle the marketing and branding, or are you going to hire out? What does that look? What does that journey
So
look like for you?
So for me, I have a few ideas on how I'm going to market this
Yeah.
particular product. Um, Obviously, with a name like Privilege, I do tend to want to play with kind of that word and
Hmm.
pick at people a little
Gotcha.
bit. But also, one of the things that I want to do is, with the bottles, I want the bottles to have a limited edition bottle once per year, basically,
Hmm.
that are designed by local artists
All
from
right.
Providence.
Oh, that's dope.
Hmm. So Providence was given the name or the moniker, the
Hmm.
creative capital.
Yeah.
And, I feel like there's a lot of talent in Rhode
A
Island,
lot of
a
talent.
lot
A
of
lot.
talent. And, unfortunately, these artists don't have a way to kind of make money off of that talent.
Hmm.
Um, what's one way to make money off of things? Well, a lot of people buy alcohol.
Yeah.
And, it's a way for them to monetize, maybe not specific art forms that they do,
Hmm.
but it's a way to introduce people to their specific art forms.
Hmm.
So if they design a bottle for me, for instance, they would be able to get a share of the revenue.
Nice.
And then the idea is I'm going to attach these bottles to an NFT deed, basically.
All right. Can you
So
explain that?
yeah, so NFTs are non-fungible tokens,
Yep.
and it's a type of digital art type of thing
Yep.
where in this sense it would be attached to the bottle and it would work as a deed.
Hmm.
So it would say, okay, this bottle is authentic, it was created such and such date, and if it's ever destroyed, so is this NFT thing.
Gotcha.
But what's even more powerful about it is that, like for example, like you might have a piece of art here
Hmm.
on this wall, um and you might have bought that, 10 years ago
Mm.
for $50. And then you decide, oh, you know what, I want to sell it. And you sell it, but this year you sell it for like $60.
Yep.
That artist never sees that extra $10 that you made off of that painting.
No.
But with this idea, every time the bottle is sold, so like let's say for example the bottle's sold for $50
Mhm.
and the artist gets 10% of that, well, they get $5 the first time around.
Yep.
And 10 years from now, let's say for example it sells for $100. Well, the artist would still get a cut of that money,
Mhm.
and it would be the $10 that they earn.
Interesting. So no matter what, the artist, from my understanding, the artist will receive, it seems like,
A
lifetime
share of
royalty off um of the beverage itself
that's
because of their artwork.
and it doesn't even need to be the beverage,
Hmm.
but the bottle, because the
Yeah,
bottle's being sold as art. So let's say for
that's pretty dope.
example,
That's actually a dope idea.
so let's say for example, okay, they can drink whatever's inside the
Yeah.
bottle, but if somebody goes ahead and says, God forbid the artist dies,
Hmm.
and then everything of
Collectible
theirs
item.
grows and
Yeah.
grows and everybody wants it. That's the truth of our world. A lot of artists die,
Hmm.
and then all their stuff becomes popular.
Yeah.
With this idea, it would leave a legacy behind.
Hmm.
So if that bottle was sold for $50 initially, and then all of a sudden it starts selling for $1,000,
Hmm.
well, their family would get 10% of whatever that bottle sold for again.
That's actually crazy, because not only, because obviously this platform is called a network, so you're
Yeah.
not only you're networking with actual artists, bringing
Mm-hmm.
their creation or their creativity to life,
Mm-hmm.
sharing their creativity.
Mm-hmm.
God forbids anything happens, wealth continues getting passed down as long as the business stays operable and is
Yeah.
functioning. That's actually a dope as I'm not gonna lie, that's a dope as idea.
I mean, I feel like that's gonna be what really differentiates from everything else.
Yeah.
It may not be something that um sticks only to this, because I feel like
Mm.
it can be used in other aspects.
Areas, yeah.
It makes sense. It's art.
Yeah.
You know, artists should be paid for their work, regardless of whether or not,
Yeah.
But
It's crazy because, like, with in Rhode Island, I truly believe there's so much talent here in
mhm,
Rhode Island. Whether it comes down to music, having a having an entrepreneur spirit,
yeah,
some form of creative side. There's so much talent out here, and I feel like, for some reason or another, the talent's always being overshadowed.
yeah,
Right. Why do you think that is? Because there's so much entrepreneur spirit out here. Individuals that, especially individuals that are serial entrepreneurs
yeah.
like you, why is it hard for us to get that type of exposure?
I mean, I think the issue is there's a few things.
Hmm.
So, I kind of don't like the word serial entrepreneur.
Yeah,
And the reason why is because it has a kind of a negative connotation to it.
talk to
It
me.
it it kind of makes people assume that you're kind of obsessed with creating new businesses, which you
Mm,
may be. I like to call myself a diversified entrepreneur.
gotcha.
I may have things that I do, and they may be different, but they're well done,
Hmm.
each of them. The problem with some serial entrepreneurs is sometimes they just kind of blow out businesses, and one might fail, another
Hmm.
one might do well, but they're kind of just shooting with their eyes closed.
Hmm.
Um, which isn't a terrible thing, if you're doing well.
Hmm.
If you're surviving and you're being able to pay the bills and handle what you need to do and survive off of what I call the three freedoms, which are time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom, then by all means. But one of the other things that I found, especially here with Rhode Island, like, I mean, I some of my first clients weren't even from Rhode Island.
Hmm.
They were from like California. They were from like the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Um, and the reason that I found that to be is not necessarily because people didn't want to support me.
Hmm.
It's because people know and see who you are, and then they see that you're doing something new, and they don't want to be the first person, most times, to experience, that new endeavor that you're going through.
Yeah.
Um, for the most part, and whether or not that's a bad thing, I don't know. I can't speak for other people.
Hmm.
I like to support people in their new endeavors personally, but not everybody feels the same way. So, you can't be mad at people for not supporting you when you're starting something new, at least in my opinion, because you might fool around and, if you're starting a new car waxing business
Hmm.
and you tell everybody to come through and you just started and you screw up their car,
Yeah,
like that's a bad look.
bad luck.
And nobody wants you to screw up their car. Are you
Yeah,
gonna pay for it? You just started your business. Well, there goes your business.
and
You
trust me, word of
know?
mouth is a powerful tool.
Yeah, so people appreciate good things and good service, but that requires um, testimonials.
Yeah.
So, like one of the things that I first did when I first started my coaching and consulting business was, I had a multifamily house. It was income producing. I had roommates. Um, I tested it on them.
Hmm.
And in testing it on them, they were paying me rent anyways. I didn't charge them for it. And they gave me testimonials.
Hmm.
So those were some of my first, people that let me work on them
Yeah.
basically without charging them.
Yeah.
I didn't really have an L because I was charging them rent
Hmm.
anyways, so I kind of took that as the benefit out of it all. And, I was able to help them help themselves
Hmm.
and also promote my business at the same time with
Yeah.
their testimonials.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You mentioned the three freedoms.
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued. I know you just mentioned it real quick,
Yeah.
but I was making sure that stayed in my head because I
Yeah.
really want you to break that down and explain them in more detail if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, yeah, of course. So I mean, so one of the things that me and my friends have that are similar to myself in many aspects is something that's called a Three Freedoms group.
Hmm.
And it's like a mastermind, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
of people with like minds that believe in what we call the three freedoms. So freedom is the ability to work whenever I want.
Hmm.
Location freedom is the ability to work from wherever I want and be wherever I want. And um, financial freedom is, not necessarily being rich, but being able to handle all of my bills
Yeah.
and not have to worry about them. Like everything is it's kosher, everything's
Yeah.
clean. Don't have to worry about like being able to pay the car note or this, that, and the third. So,
That's dope. So time, location, and
and
financial
financial
freedom are the
are
basically
the
three
three
freedoms.
freedoms. Yeah.
I like that. That's pretty dope. Now, with your current businesses and stuff like that, because you've mentioned real estate a few
Yeah.
times, and I do real estate
Yeah.
myself. Just want to tap into it real quick. Do you use the funds to purchase your first real estate property? And in addition to that, do you currently how many properties do you currently have
Yeah.
as an investment right now?
Yeah. So, my first investment was a multifamily house. It was a three family in Pawtucket, and it was income producing. So that house I bought from funds that from my 9 to 5 job when I worked. I worked at Bank of America and T-Mobile at the same time,
Hmm.
worked my ass off and bought that particular house.
Gotcha.
I did get a deal on it, in my opinion. It was a foreclosed home, needed a lot of work.
Hmm.
Got it for $130,000, put $50,000 into it with an FHA 203K,
Hmm.
and sold it for 310 right before COVID happened. So made some good money off of that. I lived in it, so the taxes on the gains were not. I wasn't taxed on that,
Awesome.
which was amazing. And that was kind of what started my other entrepreneurial, like the security and things of that. So I funded that. It also funded some investments in the Dominican Republic.
Hmm.
As of right now, I don't have any real estate property in the Rhode Island.
Hmm.
Most of my real estate endeavors I've been purchasing and starting up in Dominican Republic.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
dope. Um, Now you do taxes,
Yep.
credit consultant,
Yep.
right? Um, for the people that don't that for the people that's out there listening to this, if you don't mind, because I know this is where you really specialize
Yeah.
at, in terms of your entrepreneurial spirit. How does that really benefit them in
Mm.
terms of being able to set themselves up for the future, right? Especially to buy a home or just take out a loan, how does that help them out?
Yeah. So, one of the things I always say is cash is king.
Yeah.
They say that all the time, but credit is queen.
Mm,
So, like in a game of chess, obviously your mission, or if you've ever played chess and you haven't played it, your mission is to protect the king and make sure that you capture your opponent's king.
yeah.
So, your opponent's cash. You want to get somebody else's cash and keep yours. The queen, well, the king, first off, can only make certain moves on the board. So, it can only move one step at a time.
Hmm.
The queen, however, can move a lot faster across the board than the king
I
can.
love what this is going. This sounds This sounds ill right now. This sounds crazy. Break it
So,
down.
So with the queen being able to move across the board a lot faster, you can gobble up, the person's pawns, the kings, whatever it is, a lot faster and accomplish your task a lot faster than you normally would, which is why credit is so important in my
Mhm.
opinion. Now you can lose the queen, but you'd always get the queen back.
Gotcha.
Can't get the cash back. You can't get the king back. So
Facts.
always protect your cash, use other people's money as much as possible, and if you happen to lose the credit and you have to fix it at some point, you could always get that queen back with a pawn.
Hmm.
So
That it's crazy how you actually correlate tax and credit with playing chess.
it's strategic, and I like chess. So
Nah, that's actually strategic. You play chess a lot?
yeah.
That's dope how you really, really correlate those two. That's amazing. As an entrepreneur yourself, right?
Hmm.
Now we're going to talk about secrets to the game,
Yeah.
right? How can those that are aspiring entrepreneurs, right, who are looking to embark on the journey, um, start their own business or tap into starting their own business?
Well, one of the ways that they can do that is literally by just picking up my book, which if they're any of your people, you can just send them to send me a message and I'll give it to them for free.
Title of the book again?
It's called Learn, Drop the L, so the L in the word,
Yo,
and Earn.
that's actually pretty dope. Like, you're always thinking creatively. I really, really like that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, Now, these individuals that's looking to start their business and stuff
Yeah.
like that, right? There are processes
Yeah.
to getting everything started and becoming an entrepreneur. What challenges do you think they might have as an entrepreneur?
So there's a lot of challenges, like picking the business
Hmm.
is probably one of the biggest ones. So a
Yeah.
lot of people have that issue. And the reason why I recommend, picking up the book for sure is because I go through literally all of this in the
Hmm.
book. So I go from the mindset to the picking the big business to once you've decided on what business to go through. And I even give some examples of things that you can start up
Hmm.
that cost little to no money. I was doing ecom before, like everybody on Instagram was
Yeah.
telling you to start an ecom
Yeah.
store. It's not as simple as just opening up an LLC and getting funding, so don't believe any
They
of
make
that.
it this is what I'm talking about. Social media really makes things like so
Yeah.
simple
Yeah.
and people fall into the trap.
Yeah. Or like start a company in Delaware and then you don't have to
Yeah,
pay
that's
taxes.
crazy.
No. So there's a lot of things that people need to learn.
Hmm.
And some of the things that I go over specifically are like, okay, should you start as a sole prop and then turn it into an LLC? When should you turn it into an LLC? Well,
Hmm.
have you made this much money? Okay. Do you need insurance? Do you need taxes for your business? I mean, do you need a bookkeeper? Do you need licenses and things of that nature? So all of those things, I try to provide as many resources as possible within the book
Hmm.
to kind of just let people know, like, oh, well, you're starting this type of business. You want to go to the Secretary of State website and look up to make sure that there's no other businesses that already name that, this, that, and the third. And like also look to see what particular licenses you need for that type of business. So a lot of things that unfortunately these social media influencers don't share when they're providing these great tips on
Yeah.
how to, you know, become rich overnight or
Hmm.
whatever it is.
I don't believe. First of all, I don't believe in becoming rich overnight. I think creating some form of wealth or richness or whatever that looks like for the person. I think that takes time. and
Yeah,
takes
it
time and a
depends.
lot of
It depends. There's sometimes products hit.
sometimes products hit. I
I've seen
get it.
people become rich overnight.
And I get it, but those are one in a few.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? Like this is not.
It's not your common
Yeah, it's
everyday.
not
Yeah,
your common
yeah,
everyday thing.
yeah,
You know. So like for me, it's like it really takes time, and you really have to go through the trenches. I feel like as you're becoming an entrepreneur, one of the things that a lot of
yeah.
people don't talk about is the trenches that you
The
go into.
trenches.
Yeah.
And I have to correct myself. I mean, it's true. It's not overnight because even the people that did become rich overnight
Yeah.
were somehow working on that or doing something towards that. So like I've seen situations where people did sell like $1 million in
Mhm.
product, for instance, but they were doing the research, they were doing the
Yeah.
stuff before that night happened,
Yeah.
so there was a lot kind of put into it. Even with trading, like during COVID, I did a lot of trading,
Mhm.
did options trading mainly, and I taught a lot of people about, like, how to do that particular type of trading. And some of there's a student of mine that's does it now full time
Mhm.
because it was doing so well for him.
Wow.
So
I remember I read a book where was it a book or something online
mm,
where Jeff Bezos, the
mm,
founder of Amazon, where before he as he was creating Amazon,
yep.
him and his wife, ex-wife, I guess you
Hmm.
want to say at the time, um, used to be in their office space or whatever. And this was when before they even turned into like a global market
Phenomenon,
base.
yeah.
You know, they started off books, right?
Yeah, they
That's
started
how
with books.
they
Yeah.
started with books for those who don't know, right?
Yeah.
And I remember the article I read was that him and his wife, they used to be on their knees
Mm,
boxing books,
yeah. To ship
yo,
them out.
to ship them out.
Yeah, in the
And
garage and stuff, yeah.
yeah, and
Mm,
that's crazy because I actually know it, I remember one time, and man, stories like that to me are great
yeah.
because I remember one of my homegirl, she owns, I'm not sure if you know her, she owns Roam Loud, a
Mm,
fitness apparel type
okay.
of company. And I remember when she had an order that needed to get shipped to a big chain store.
Wow.
And I remember she had to like get all the clothes ready too. So like entrepreneurship, the journey of that, to me,
Yeah.
I really don't think like that's an overnight thing. I really believe that's hard work,
Yeah.
determination, and all that. What tools, because I know in your book you mentioned that you gave insight on the type of tools and
Yeah.
strategies. If you don't mind, can you share what some of those tools, systems, and strategies are for
Um,
those who are looking to
yeah, I
become
mean,
entrepreneurs?
specifically with like entrepreneurship, reading is probably one of the most important things. Doing your research, learning, something as simple as just a Google search can help an entrepreneur figure out a lot of things. That's how I figured out a lot of things about like the tequila business, for instance. Um, now with AI, there's even another tool and resource at your disposal. Um, going ahead, audiobooks if you don't like to read.
Mhm.
There's some people I understand that can't sit there and stare at a book for, a few hours.
Yeah.
And I get that. Audiobooks are great. There's another application that I use that's called Uptime, where it literally takes a book for you and it breaks it down into like 5 minutes.
Yes,
So
I heard about
so
that.
that's dope. There's a lot of applications as well that you can use, just on your day to day. Like for example, for my security company, in order to track people's times and locations and give them orders and
Mm.
this, that, and the third. You can imagine it can be difficult if
Yeah.
you're not in the location. I have everything digital. That's called Connect Team. Like those are apps that exist that
Mm.
you just kind of have to look for them sometimes, and it can be difficult. Like especially as an entrepreneur, to know all of these tools, just off rip. But these are things that I've made it my job to know. But also, you know, you have to think about where you want to go with things. So that way you can find the right tools to use at that right time.
Mm. Like I used to always think like as the individual I am right now as a
Mm,
realtor, podcaster, investor, um, what my what I want to be known for,
mm,
right? The impacts that you want to make
yeah,
uh to people.
yeah.
What do you see what type of impact do you feel like? What type of let me ask you, what type
Yeah.
of impact do you want to leave behind?
Yeah. I mean, I'm grateful enough to say that what I'm doing right now aligns with what I want to leave behind.
Yeah,
Um, so the security company, I started it for a reason.
yeah,
Unfortunately, I lost a friend to the nightlife.
yeah. Sorry to hear that.
So that was a tragic situation. One of the co-founder of the company actually got stabbed by a security guard.
Man,
And we realized that security, at least in Rhode Island and probably around the entire world, just wasn't at par with what it should be.
yeah,
You know, so we were sitting down watching Game of Thrones one day. I had just sold the house, had some money to kind of play around with, and I was like, we should start a security company. And we ended up deciding to call it Nightlife,
mm,
because I saw the knights on Game of Thrones and how they were treated with respect and how they were, paid well. Because I felt like security guards were probably getting paid a little too little,
mm-hmm,
and that's probably why there were so many issues with what was going on in the world. Um, but they were also, they wore their armor, they were treated valiantly with respect, and they also protected the realm
yeah,
overall. So, we went with that, and that was meaningful for me. Um, and pretty much everything I work with, I try to tie back into something that means something to me. So I like to do, like, social entrepreneur
yeah,
things where I'm helping people, or doing something that will ultimately work towards improving the community somehow. With the tequila, I hope to do that with the artists.
mm,
And with what I'm doing with the consulting, some of the things I've done is, I've tried to, like, teach these things to, like, kids at an early stage. And, I also want to create, like, courses that, I can give away for free for, like, kids to learn specifically, like, about credit
mm-hmm,
before they get into that adult stage of
yeah.
life.
No, that's amazing,
No,
Mr. Van.
if not now.
If not now, how do you define success in your own words?
I mean, success is different for a lot of people, but for me, it's solving problems. So for me, when I am the most happiest is when I'm solving problems.
Yeah,
I'm a problem solver by nature. It could be something as simple as, figuring out how I'm gonna pay the bills this week.
yeah,
Or something as difficult as, like, how am I gonna run this business from Dominican Republic,
mm,
you Um, and when I'm able to do things like that, I found that not only am I happy, but I'm successful.
yeah.
So I like to correlate my happiness with success, and it's different for everybody.
No, facts. No, I definitely appreciate that. If anybody wants to get a hold of you,
Yeah.
whether it's for consultant, advice,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like, how can they get a hold of you?
I'm very easy to find. You can literally just Google my name, Carlos Ariel, then, and I pop up. My social media is all the same. Um, so it's Mr. underscore then, so MR underscore THEN on pretty much every platform. YouTube, Google, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. I'm on all of them. So
Man, you guys hear it from the man himself, Mr. Then. If not,
if not now.
there we go. It's your boy Sadiq. Thank you guys very much for tuning into this platform. If you guys like what you guys hear today, please follow my page, Sadiq Davies on Instagram, and also follow the podcast page as well on Instagram called thetnetwork.co. That's THENETWRK.co. And also, if you want to watch the full content, definitely check me out on YouTube, Sadiq Davies, SADIQDAVIES. Get used to that name because that name is going to be a household name. But until next time, it's your man Sadiq. Catch you guys on the flip side.